Imagine this. You wake up one morning, the sun streaming through your window, and you feel a strange sense of unease. You've done everything right. You've followed the rules, practiced gratitude, visualized success, and repeated affirmations until they felt like second nature. You've been told that positive thinking is the key to happiness, the secret to success, the antidote to all your problems. And yet here you are, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering why you still feel empty. You've been told to think positive so often that it's become a mantra, a reflex, a shield against the chaos of life. But what if this shield is also a cage? What if the relentless pursuit of positivity is not the solution, but the problem? What if, in your quest to avoid negativity, you've been avoiding something far more essential? Yourself. This is the dark side of positive thinking, the unspoken truth that beneath its shiny surface lies a labyrinth of denial, repression, and self-deception. It's the uncomfortable reality that sometimes the more you try to force yourself to be positive, the more you feel like a fraud. The more you suppress your doubts, fears, and frustrations, the more they fester in the shadows, growing stronger, darker, and more insidious. Consider this paradox. Why is it that the more we chase happiness, the more elusive it becomes? Why is it that the people who seem the most positive are often the ones who feel the most disconnected from their true selves? And why does the culture of positivity, with its endless slogans and self-help platitudes, leave so many of us feeling more lost than ever? The answer lies in a simple but unsettling truth. Positive thinking, when taken to extremes, becomes a form of avoidance. It becomes a way to bypass the messy, uncomfortable, and often painful realities of life. It becomes a mask we wear to hide our vulnerabilities, a shield we use to protect ourselves from the world and from ourselves. But here's the catch. Life is not meant to be lived in a state of perpetual positivity. Life is a tapestry of light and shadow, joy and sorrow, triumph and failure. To deny the shadow is to deny half of yourself. To reject the darkness is to reject the very thing that makes the light meaningful. So what happens when we refuse to confront the darker aspects of our existence? What happens when we bury our pain, our anger, our fear, and our doubt beneath a mountain of forced smiles and empty affirmations? What happens when we trade authenticity for approval, depth for superficiality, and truth for comfort? The answer is both subtle and profound. We lose ourselves. We become strangers in our own lives, disconnected from our emotions, our desires, and our purpose. We become trapped in a cycle of performative positivity, where the goal is not to live, but to appear as if we are living. And in the process, we sacrifice the very thing that makes life worth living, the ability to feel, to grow, to transform. This is the great question at the heart of the dark side of positive thinking. What are we willing to sacrifice in our pursuit of happiness? And more importantly, what are we willing to confront? As you lie there, staring at the ceiling, the weight of this question settles over you like a heavy blanket. You begin to wonder, have I been running from something all along? Have I been so focused on staying positive that I've forgotten how to be real? And if so, how do I find my way back to myself? The journey ahead is not an easy one. It requires courage, honesty, and a willingness to face the shadows you've spent so long avoiding. But it is also a journey of liberation, a chance to break free from the chains of performative positivity and reclaim the full spectrum of your humanity. So take a deep breath. The first step is the hardest, admitting that the light you've been chasing might not be what you thought it was. The second step is even harder, turning toward the darkness and asking what it has to teach you. Are you ready to begin?
The hidden problem and its psychological/philosophical roots. To understand the dark side of positive thinking, we must first confront a fundamental truth: the human mind is not designed for perpetual happiness. It is designed for survival. This means it is wired to detect threats, solve problems, and navigate the complexities of existence. Yet, in our modern world, we've been sold a lie that happiness is not only attainable but should be our default state. This lie has roots that run deep, intertwining with psychology, philosophy, and the very fabric of our culture. Consider the words of Carl Jung, who warned, "What you resist not only persists but will grow in size." Jung understood that the psyche is a dynamic system, a delicate balance of opposites. To deny one aspect of it, whether it's anger, sadness, or fear, is to disrupt this balance. When we suppress our negative emotions in the name of positivity, we don't eliminate them, we simply push them into the shadows, where they fester and grow. This is the birth of what Jung called the shadow self, the part of us we refuse to acknowledge, the part that holds our deepest fears, desires, and wounds. But why do we resist these darker aspects of ourselves? Why do we cling so tightly to the illusion of positivity? The answer lies in a combination of psychological conditioning and societal pressure. From a young age, we are taught that negative emotions are bad. Anger is unproductive. Sadness is weakness. Fear is irrational. We are told to look on the bright side, to stay strong, to keep smiling. These messages are reinforced by a culture that values appearances over authenticity, success over struggle, and happiness over meaning. This cultural obsession with positivity is not accidental. It is a product of what philosopher Herbert Marcuse called repressive desublimation, a process by which society encourages the expression of certain desires, like consumerism or superficial happiness, to suppress deeper, more disruptive ones, like existential questioning or rebellion. In other words, the culture of positivity is a tool of control. It keeps us distracted, complacent, and disconnected from our true selves. But the problem goes even deeper. At its core, the relentless pursuit of positivity is a defense mechanism, a way to avoid the inherent uncertainty and suffering of life. This is where the philosophy of existentialism comes into play. Thinkers like Jean-Paul Sartre and Friedrich Nietzsche understood that life is inherently meaningless. It is up to us to create our own meaning, to confront the absurdity of existence, and to embrace the full spectrum of human experience. Yet, in our quest for positivity, we often do the opposite. We cling to superficial meanings, money, status, approval, while avoiding the deeper questions that give life its richness and depth. Nietzsche, in particular, saw this avoidance as a form of spiritual sickness. He called it slave morality, a mindset that prioritizes comfort, safety, and conformity over growth, struggle, and self-overcoming. In his view, true strength comes not from avoiding suffering but from embracing it. To live is to suffer, he wrote, to survive is to find some meaning in the suffering. Yet, in our modern world, we've turned this wisdom on its head. We've made suffering the enemy, and in doing so, we've robbed ourselves of the very thing that makes us human, the ability to grow through adversity. This brings us to the psychological roots of the problem. Research in cognitive psychology has shown that suppressing emotions, whether positive or negative, has serious consequences. When we suppress negative emotions, we don't eliminate them, we simply push them into our subconscious, where they continue to influence our thoughts, behaviors, and decisions. This creates a phenomenon known as emotional leakage, the tendency for suppressed emotions to resurface in unexpected and often destructive ways. For example, someone who suppresses their anger might find themselves lashing out at a loved one over a minor inconvenience. Someone who suppresses their sadness might develop chronic anxiety or depression. And someone who suppresses their fear might become paralyzed by indecision or self-doubt. In each case, the attempt to avoid negativity only amplifies it, creating a vicious cycle of repression and emotional turmoil. But the consequences of this repression extend beyond the individual. On a societal level, the culture of positivity has created a world where vulnerability is seen as weakness, where struggle is stigmatized, and where authenticity is sacrificed for the sake of appearances. This has led to what psychologist Gabor Mate calls a society of disconnection, a world where people are more connected than ever, yet feel more alone than ever. Mate argues that this disconnection is at the root of many modern problems, from addiction to mental illness to societal unrest. When we disconnect from our true selves, when we deny our pain, our anger, our fear, we lose touch with our humanity. We become hollow shells, going through the motions of life without truly living. And so, the dark side of positive thinking reveals itself. It is not just a personal problem but a societal one. It is a symptom of a deeper malaise, a collective refusal to confront the complexities of existence, a collective denial of the shadow that lurks within us all. But there is hope. To break free from this cycle, we must first understand it. We must confront the psychological and philosophical roots of our obsession with positivity, and we must ask ourselves, what are we really running from? And what would happen if we stopped running? The answers to these questions are not easy, but they are essential. They require us to delve into the depths of our psyche, to confront the shadows we've spent so long avoiding, and to embrace the full spectrum of our humanity. This is the journey we must undertake, a journey into the heart of the dark side of positive thinking. The rebellion, how to break free. Breaking free from the dark side of positive thinking is not a passive act, it is a rebellion. It requires a deliberate and often uncomfortable shift in how we perceive ourselves, our emotions, and the world around us. This rebellion is not about rejecting positivity altogether, it's about reclaiming it from the clutches of superficiality and using it as a tool for growth rather than a shield against reality. To embark on this journey, we must first dismantle the myths that have kept us trapped and then rebuild a new framework for understanding and experiencing life. Step 1. Embrace the shadow. The first step in this rebellion is to confront the shadow, the parts of ourselves we've been taught to reject. Carl Jung famously said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." The shadow is not something to be feared or avoided, it is a source of immense power and wisdom. It holds the key to our deepest desires, our unhealed wounds, and our untapped potential. To embrace the shadow, we must first acknowledge its existence. This means sitting with our discomfort, our anger, our sadness, and our fear. It means asking ourselves difficult questions. What am I avoiding? What am I ashamed of? What parts of myself have I disowned? This process is not easy, but it is necessary. It requires courage, honesty, and a willingness to face the unknown. One practical way to begin this work is through journaling or therapy. By putting our thoughts and feelings into words, we bring them into the light, where they can be examined and understood. Another powerful tool is mindfulness meditation, which allows us to observe our emotions without judgment or resistance. The goal is not to eliminate the shadow, but to integrate it, to make it a part of who we are rather than something we run from. Step 2. Redefine positivity. The next step is to redefine what positivity means. In its current form, positivity is often equated with happiness, optimism, and success. But this narrow definition ignores the richness and complexity of human experience. True positivity is not about avoiding negativity, it's about embracing life in all its messiness and finding meaning in the struggle. Philosophers like Viktor Frankl and Friedrich Nietzsche understood this deeply. Frankl, a Holocaust survivor, wrote extensively about the importance of finding meaning in suffering. He argued that even in the most dire circumstances, we have the power to choose our attitude and our response. Nietzsche, on the other hand, saw suffering as a necessary part of growth. He believed that it is through struggle that we become stronger, wiser, and more resilient. To redefine positivity, we must shift our focus from happiness to meaning. This means asking ourselves, what gives my life purpose? What am I willing to struggle for? What kind of person do I want to become? By aligning our actions with our values, we create a sense of fulfillment that transcends fleeting emotions. Step 3. Cultivate emotional agility. Another crucial aspect of breaking free is developing emotional agility, the ability to navigate our emotions with flexibility and grace. Psychologist Susan David describes emotional agility as the capacity to show up to our emotions with curiosity and compassion, and then take values-connected steps. This involves several key practices. 1. Labeling emotions. Instead of suppressing or denying our feelings, we name them. This simple act of acknowledgement can reduce their intensity and help us gain clarity. 2. Accepting emotions. We allow ourselves to feel without judgment. This doesn't mean we have to like our emotions, but we accept them as valid and important. 3. Choosing responses. We decide how to act based on our values, rather than being driven by our emotions. Emotional agility allows us to move through life with greater resilience and authenticity. It helps us break free from the cycle of repression and emotional leakage, enabling us to respond to challenges with clarity and purpose. Step 4. Challenge cultural narratives. Breaking free also requires us to question the cultural narratives that perpetuate the dark side of positive thinking. This means rejecting the idea that happiness is the ultimate goal and that suffering is a sign of failure. It means challenging the pressure to always be on, to always be productive, to always be positive. One way to do this is by seeking out alternative perspectives. Read the works of existentialist philosophers like Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus, who explored the absurdity of life and the importance of creating our own meaning. Engage with thinkers like Gabor Mate, who highlight the societal roots of addiction and disconnection. Surround yourself with people who value depth and authenticity over superficiality and performance. Step 5. Practice radical self-compassion. Finally, breaking free requires us to treat ourselves with kindness and compassion. This is not about indulging in self-pity or avoiding responsibility, it's about recognizing our humanity and embracing our imperfections. Psychologist Kristen Neff defines self-compassion as having 3 components. 1. Self-kindness, treating ourselves with the same care and understanding we would offer a friend. 2. Common humanity, recognizing that suffering is a universal part of the human experience. 3. Mindfulness, holding our pain in balanced awareness, without exaggeration or denial. By practicing radical self-compassion, we create a safe space within ourselves to explore our emotions, confront our shadows, and grow through adversity. The path forward. Breaking free from the dark side of positive thinking is not a one-time event, it's an ongoing process. It requires us to continually question our assumptions, confront our fears, and embrace the full spectrum of our humanity. But the rewards are immense: greater authenticity, deeper connections, and a more meaningful and fulfilling life. As you embark on this journey, remember that you are not alone. Countless others have walked this path before you, and countless more will follow. Together, we can create a world that values depth over superficiality, authenticity over performance, and meaning over happiness. But the journey doesn't end here. There is one final, most powerful realization waiting to be uncovered, a truth that will redefine how you see yourself and the world around you.
The ultimate truth, the final, most powerful realization. The journey through the dark side of positive thinking leads us to a profound and transformative truth. The pursuit of happiness is not the goal of life, it is the byproduct of living authentically and meaningfully. This realization is not just a philosophical insight, it is a paradigm shift that redefines how we understand ourselves, our emotions, and our place in the world. For so long, we've been told that happiness is the ultimate destination, the prize at the end of the road. We've been sold the idea that if we just think positively, work hard, and follow the rules, we'll arrive at some mythical state of perpetual bliss. But this is a lie, a seductive and dangerous lie that has kept us chasing shadows while ignoring the substance of life. The truth is this: happiness is not a destination. It is a fleeting emotion, one of many that make up the rich tapestry of human experience. It is not something to be pursued, but something to be experienced in moments of connection, of growth, of meaning. When we make happiness the goal, we set ourselves up for failure because life is not designed to be happy all the time. Life is designed to be lived. This realization is both liberating and unsettling. It liberates us from the pressure to always be positive, to always be on, to always be striving for some unattainable ideal. But it also unsettles us because it forces us to confront the inherent uncertainty and impermanence of life. It asks us to let go of our illusions of control and embrace the messiness of existence. The paradox of acceptance. At the heart of this realization is a paradox. The more we accept the full spectrum of our emotions, the light and the dark, the joy and the sorrow, the more we are able to experience true happiness. This is because acceptance creates space for authenticity. When we stop running from our pain, our fear, and our vulnerability, we open ourselves up to the possibility of connection, growth, and transformation. This paradox is beautifully illustrated in the work of Viktor Frankl, who wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." Frankl understood that meaning is not found in avoiding suffering, but in finding purpose within it. He saw that even in the darkest moments, we have the power to choose our attitude and our response. This is the essence of resilience, not the absence of suffering, but the ability to find meaning in it. The power of meaning. The ultimate truth, then, is that meaning is the antidote to the dark side of positive thinking. When we focus on creating meaning in our lives, through our relationships, our work, our passions, and our values, we tap into a source of fulfillment that transcends fleeting emotions. Meaning gives us a sense of purpose, a reason to keep going even when life is hard. It anchors us in the present moment and connects us to something greater than ourselves. This is not to say that meaning is easy to find. It requires us to ask difficult questions. What do I truly care about? What am I willing to struggle for? What kind of person do I want to be? These questions do not have easy answers, but they are essential. They force us to confront our fears, our doubts, and our desires. They challenge us to live with intention and integrity. The beauty of imperfection. Another aspect of this ultimate truth is the recognition that imperfection is not a flaw, but a feature of being human. We are not meant to be perfect. We are meant to be whole. This means embracing our contradictions, our complexities, and our vulnerabilities. It means recognizing that our shadows are not something to be ashamed of, but something to be integrated. This idea is echoed in the Japanese concept of wabi-sabi, which finds beauty in imperfection, impermanence, and incompleteness. It is a reminder that life is not about achieving some idealized state, but about appreciating the beauty of the here and now, the cracks, the flaws, and all. Hashur, the call to action. The final, most powerful realization is not just an intellectual understanding, it is a call to action. It challenges us to live differently, to stop chasing happiness and start creating meaning. It asks us to embrace the full spectrum of our humanity, to confront our shadows, and to find beauty in the messiness of life. This is not an easy path, but it is a deeply rewarding one. It requires courage, honesty, and a willingness to let go of our illusions. But the rewards are immense: a sense of authenticity, a deeper connection to ourselves and others, and a life that is rich with meaning and purpose. The cinematic conclusion. Imagine this. You are standing at the edge of a vast ocean, the waves crashing at your feet. The sun is setting, casting a golden glow over the water. You take a deep breath, feeling the weight of everything you've carried, the pain, the fear, the doubt, and then, slowly, you let it go. You release the need to be perfect, the need to be happy, the need to control everything. In that moment, you feel a sense of freedom, a freedom you've never known before. You realize that life is not about reaching some distant shore. It's about diving into the waves, embracing the currents, and finding beauty in the journey. This is the ultimate truth. Life is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. And when we embrace that mystery, when we stop running from the shadows and start dancing with them, we discover a joy that is deeper, richer, and more enduring than anything we've ever known. So take a step forward, dive into the waves, embrace the messiness, the imperfection, the uncertainty. And remember, the dark side of positive thinking is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of a new one. The choice is yours. What will you do with it?